Jae-won Beck's cold eyes remained fixed on the man cowering before him in the private VIP room of Moonlight Pavilion, one of Gangnam's most exclusive restaurants. The air was thick with tension as 6 of his lieutenants watched in silence, their hands resting near concealed weapons. "You have 3 days," Jae-won said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet somehow more terrifying than if he had shouted. 3 days to pay what you owe, or... The door opened. Time stopped. A young woman walked in, balancing a tray with perfect poise, completely unfazed by the scene before her. Her dark skin glowed under the soft lighting, her natural hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She wore the restaurant's standard uniform, but somehow she made it look regal. Her eyes swept across the room with calm assessment, landing on Jae-won without a trace of fear. Jae-won's words died in his throat. His heart, which he'd long believed had turned to stone, suddenly pounded against his ribs. He couldn't look away. The way she moved, the confidence in her stride, the slight smile playing at the corners of her lips. It was as if the rest of the world had faded into gray, and she was the only splash of color remaining. In that single moment, Jae-won Beck, Korea's most feared crime boss, fell completely and irrevocably in love. But the woman who captured his heart was the only one in Seoul who didn't care who he was. This is the story of how Emma, a college waitress working for her tuition, brought the most powerful man in Korea to his knees and taught him that love is the one thing money can't buy. Before we dive into this incredible story, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to keep making these kinds of videos for you guys. Your support means everything to us. Emma set down water glasses with practiced efficiency, her movements graceful and unhurried. When she reached Jae-won's seat, their eyes met. In that instant, something fundamental shifted in his chest. He'd never believed in love at first sight. He'd always thought it was something foolish people invented to justify poor decisions. But in this moment, staring into her warm brown eyes, he understood. This wasn't attraction. This wasn't interest. This was recognition, as if his soul had been waiting his entire life for hers. "Good evening, gentlemen," Emma said, her voice melodious with a slight accent. "Can I start you off with some appetizers this evening?" The room remained silent. Every person there knew that no one interrupted Jae-won Beck during business. The man who'd broken the glass now looked between Emma and Jae-won with growing panic, unsure if this interruption would make things better or catastrophically worse. But Jae-won couldn't find his voice. He was 28 years old, heir to one of Korea's most powerful crime families, feared by men twice his age, and yet this woman had rendered him completely speechless. One of his lieutenants cleared his throat. "We haven't looked at the menu yet." Emma nodded pleasantly. "Of course. I'll give you a few more minutes." She placed the final water glass in front of Jae-won, and he caught the faint scent of cocoa butter and something floral. His hands, which had broken bones and signed death warrants, trembled slightly as he reached for the glass. She turned to leave, and Jae-won found himself watching the way her shoulders squared, the confident set of her spine. She didn't glance back, didn't seem to notice or care that she'd just walked into a room full of dangerous men as if she owned the place. The door closed behind her. "Boss?" One of his men ventured carefully. Jae-won blinked, remembering where he was. He looked at the terrified debtor. "Get out. You have your 3 days." The man scrambled to his feet and fled. His lieutenants exchanged confused glances. Jae-won never showed mercy, never postponed consequences. Something had just happened that none of them understood. "Who is she?" Jae-won asked, his voice different now, softer somehow. His head of security shifted uncomfortably. "The waitress?" "I don't know, boss. Want me to find out?" "Yes." Jae-won stood, straightening his designer suit jacket. "Find out everything." 20 minutes later, Emma returned with menus, that same calm smile on her face. Jae-won had composed himself, or at least he thought he had, until she leaned slightly forward to place a menu in front of him, and he caught her scent again. His chest tightened. "Our chef's special tonight is the braised short rib with a gochujang reduction," Emma said. "It's quite popular. But if you prefer seafood, the grilled mackerel is fresh from Busan this morning." Jae-won realized he was staring and forced himself to look at the menu. The words blurred together. He couldn't focus on anything except her presence. "I'll have the short rib," one of his men said. "Excellent choice," Emma replied, writing it down. When it was Jae-won's turn, he cleared his throat. "I'll have the seared tuna. But I want it cooked well done, not rare." Emma's pen paused. She looked up at him, and for the first time, Something other than professional courtesy crossed her face. I apologize, sir, but our chef doesn't modify that particular dish. The tuna is specially prepared to be served rare. That's what brings out its flavor. If it's cooked well done, it becomes tough and loses all its delicate taste. The room went deadly silent. No one contradicted J1 Beck. No one told him no. His lieutenants froze, unsure whether to intervene or let this play out. In the years they'd served him, they'd seen men beaten for less disrespect. But J1 felt no anger. Instead, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine surprise and fascination. What would you suggest instead? He asked quietly. Emma's expression didn't change. She wasn't intimidated, wasn't trying to backtrack. If you prefer your fish cooked through, I'd recommend the grilled sea bass. It's served with a light soy glaze and seasonal vegetables. Or the braised short rib that I mentioned earlier. It's very tender. The short rib, then, J1 said, unable to keep a slight smile from his lips. Perfect. Emma finished writing. I'll have these out to you shortly. She collected the menus and left, and J1 watched her go, that strange warmth still spreading through his chest. Boss, his second-in-command said carefully, I know what she did, J1 interrupted. Leave it. His men exchanged glances, but said nothing more. Throughout dinner, J1 barely tasted his food. Every time Emma returned to check on them or refill water glasses, his attention fixed entirely on her. The way she moved between tables with efficient grace. The way she smiled at customers, genuine and warm. The way she seemed to navigate the restaurant's complex social dynamics without a hint of nervousness. She treated him exactly the way she treated every other customer. No deference, no fear, no attempts to flirt or gain favor. Just professional, courteous service. It was intoxicating. When the meal ended and his men began to stand, J1 found himself reluctant to leave. He pulled out his wallet and placed several bills on the table, far more than the meal cost. A tip of 500,000 won, nearly $400 American. Emma returned to clear the plates and spotted the money. Her eyebrows rose slightly. Have a good evening, gentlemen, she said pleasantly, picking up the plates but leaving the cash. J1 and his men filed out. As they reached the parking lot where 3 black Mercedes waited, J1 paused. Go ahead. I'll meet you back at the office. His security chief frowned. Boss, you shouldn't be alone. I'm in a restaurant parking lot, not enemy territory. Go. Reluctantly, his men got into the cars and drove away. J1 leaned against his vehicle, waiting. 10 minutes later, Emma emerged from the restaurant, walking quickly toward him. She held out the cash. Sir, I think you made a mistake with your payment, she said. J1 looked at the money, then at her. No mistake. Your service was excellent. The meal was 80,000 won. You left 500,000. She pushed the bills toward him. I can't accept this. It's too much. Why not? I can afford it. Emma's eyes narrowed slightly. That's not the point. I didn't do anything to deserve this amount. Either you're trying to show off, which I find distasteful, or you want something in return, which I'm not interested in providing. J1 felt his pulse quicken. Every woman he'd ever met would have taken the money, probably demanded more. But she stood there, arm extended, refusing a tip that probably equaled her weekly salary. I want nothing in return, he said honestly. I just thought. You thought wrong. Emma placed the bills in his hand, her fingers briefly touching his. Even that small contact sent electricity through his skin. If you enjoyed your meal, you can leave a reasonable tip next time. Good night, sir. She turned and walked toward the bus stop across the street. J1 stood in the parking lot, holding the rejected money, watching her wait for the bus like any ordinary person. A woman who'd just turned down more money than most people made in a week, walking away from him without a second glance. In that moment, J1 Beck realized he'd just met the one thing he couldn't have, and he'd never wanted anything more in his entire life. The next morning, J1 sat in his penthouse office overlooking the Han River, listening to his head of security's report. Minho had been with the family for 15 years and had never seen his boss this invested in anyone's background check. Her name is Emma Davis, 23 years old, from a small town in Georgia, United States. She's here on a student exchange program at Seoul National University, studying international business. She's in her final year. J1 leaned forward. Go on. She works 3 jobs to pay tuition and living expenses. Morning shifts tutoring English to elementary students, weekend retail at a clothing store in Myeongdong, and evening shifts at Moonlight Pavilion. She sends roughly 40% of her earnings back to her family in the States. Her family situation? Minho consulted his notes. Single mother, 2 younger siblings. Father's been in prison for 6 years, got involved with some loan sharks back home, ended badly. Mother works as a nurse. They're struggling but staying afloat, mostly thanks to Emma's contributions. J1 absorbed this information, a new respect blooming in his chest. She wasn't just proud. She had every reason to be wary of men like him. Her father's mistakes had clearly left scars. What else? Top of her class. Perfect attendance despite working those 3 jobs. Her professors love her. No romantic relationships that we can find. She literally has no time. Her roommate is a Japanese exchange student named Yuki Tanaka. Emma's routine is rigid. Classes from 8 to noon. Tutoring until 4, quick dinner, restaurant shifts 6 to midnight. Then studying until 2 in the morning. She sleeps maybe 5 hours a night. J1's jaw tightened. She was working herself to exhaustion. She has no social life at all. None. Her roommate says Emma hasn't been on a single date since arriving in Seoul 8 months ago. Doesn't go to parties, doesn't drink, barely has time for friendship. She's completely focused on her goals. After Minho left, J1 sat in silence, staring at the city below. Most people would see Emma's life as proof she needed help, needed someone to ease her burden. But he understood now why his money had offended her. She wasn't killing herself with work because she had no other option. She was doing it to prove something. To herself, to her family, maybe to her father who'd taken the easy road and destroyed everything. She was building something through her own effort, and his money threatened to cheapen that achievement. For the first time in his life, Jawan didn't know what to do. Every problem he'd ever faced could be solved with money or power. But Emma had made it clear neither would work on her. That evening, he returned to Moonlight Pavilion alone, dressed more casually than usual. Though his idea of casual still involved designer jeans and a sweater that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He requested Emma's section. When she approached his table, her professional smile was in place, but he thought he detected a flicker of recognition in her eyes. "Good evening, sir. Back so soon." "The food was excellent last night," J1 said. "I thought I'd try the sea base you recommended." "An excellent choice." She wrote it down. "Any appetizers?" "What do you suggest?" Emma seemed to consider this seriously. "The kimchi pancakes are very good. Crispy on the outside, soft inside. They're actually my favorite item on the menu. Have you tried everything here?" "The staff gets to sample dishes during training," she said. "It's one of the perks of the job." "What made you choose this restaurant?" J1 asked, genuinely curious. Emma's eyes narrowed slightly, as if sensing this was more than casual conversation. "The pay is competitive, and the evening hours work with my class schedule. Plus, it's close to a major bus line, so I can get home efficiently. Practical. Logical." No romance in her answer, just efficiency. "You're a student?" "Seoul National University. International Business." She said it with quiet pride. "That's impressive. Very competitive program." "Yes, it is." Emma shifted her weight, clearly wanting to move on. "I'll get your order in." Over the next 2 weeks, J1 came to the restaurant every single night. He tried different dishes, always asked Emma's opinion, always left a reasonable tip, exactly 15%, nothing more. He was trying to prove he could respect her boundaries. But he couldn't help trying to learn more about her. Small questions, casual conversation during the brief moments when she checked on his table. He learned she loved old jazz music, that she missed her mother's cooking, that she dreamed of opening her own consulting firm one day, helping small businesses grow. Emma remained polite but distant, treating him like any regular customer. And somehow, that made him want her even more. One night, as she brought his check, J1 took a chance. "Would you like to get coffee sometime? When you're not working?" Emma set down the check, her expression unreadable. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm very busy with school and work. I don't really have time for socializing. Not even for an hour? Especially not for an hour," she said gently but firmly. "Every hour counts right now. I'm sorry." She walked away, leaving J1 with the check and a growing sense of desperation. Every woman he'd ever shown interest in had been eager, available, willing to rearrange their entire life for a chance to be with him. Emma couldn't spare him 60 minutes. The following week, J1's frustration mounted. He wasn't used to waiting, to being denied. His lieutenants noticed his distraction during meetings. His father commented on his uncharacteristic patience with a business rival. Everything in his life felt muted, colorless, except for those brief interactions at the restaurant. Then he made his first real mistake. A luxury shopping bag appeared at the restaurant on a Tuesday evening, addressed to Emma. Inside was a Chanel handbag worth nearly 3 million won, accompanied by a card that read simply, "For someone who deserves beautiful things. JB." When Emma's shift ended, she found Mrs. Park, the restaurant manager, in the office. "Mrs. Park, someone sent this to me at work. I can't accept it, and I need to know who sent it so I can return it." Mrs. Park looked uncomfortable. "Emma, it's from a valued patron. You should keep it. I don't care if it's from the president of Samsung. I'm not keeping a 3 million bag from a stranger. Please return it." "Emma." "Mrs. Park, with all due respect, if this happens again, I'll quit. I came here to work, not to be some customer's charity case or potential mistress. Return it, please." The bag was returned the next day. Jae-won received it back at his office with a note in Emma's handwriting. "I earn my own way. Please respect that." He stared at the note for a long time. Most women would have kept the bag and asked for matching shoes. Emma had rejected it without a moment's hesitation and threatened to quit her job over it. Minho entered the office, looking nervous. "Boss, maybe it's time to reconsider this pursuit. She's clearly not interested." "No," Jae-won said quietly. "She's interested. I see it in her eyes sometimes, just for a second before she looks away. But she won't let herself be. There's a difference." "Then what's your play?" Jae-won had no answer. For the first time in his criminal career, he was completely out of ideas. Over the next 2 weeks, he tried everything. He sent flowers. They were returned. He offered to pay her tuition outright. She told him if he mentioned money again, she'd request a different section. He tried sending gifts to her apartment. Her roommate Yuki brought them all back to the restaurant in a garbage bag. "She says to tell you she's not a project," Yuki had said, looking amused. "And that if you really want to impress her, try respecting her the first time she says no." Jae-won was running out of moves. His entire life, problems had been solved through escalation. More money, more pressure, more power. But Emma only pulled further away with each attempt. Then he had what he thought was a brilliant idea. If she wouldn't let him help her directly, maybe he could orchestrate situations where he could demonstrate his worth, where she could see him as a hero rather than a threat. He had Minho arrange for a mugging attempt near her campus. Nothing dangerous, just a staged scenario where a hired actor would try to snatch her purse, and Jae-won would conveniently be nearby to intervene. It was a Thursday evening, and Emma was walking from the library to the bus stop. The actor approached as planned, reaching for her bag with a practiced motion designed to look threatening but cause no real harm. Emma's response was immediate and devastating. She pepper-sprayed the actor directly in the face, then swept his legs out from under him with a move that suggested serious self-defense training. As he fell, she pinned his arm behind his back and had her phone out, calling the police, before Jae-won could even get out of his car. By the time Jae-won reached them, the actor was crying, partially from the pepper spray, partially from the humiliation of being taken down by someone half his size. Emma looked up and saw Jae-won. Then she looked at the actor, then back at Jae-won. Her expression shifted from concentration to understanding to disappointment. "Really?" she said, her voice cold. "You thought I'd fall for this?" "Emma, I just wanted. His shoes are worth more than my monthly rent. His nails are manicured." And he hesitated for a full 3 seconds before grabbing my bag. No real criminal hesitates. She stood up, releasing the still whimpering actor. "You staged this." Jae-won opened his mouth, then closed it. There was no point in lying. Emma's eyes, which had always held warmth even when she was being firm, now looked at him with something that made his chest ache. Disappointment. Deep, profound disappointment. "I actually thought you might be different," she said quietly. "Every night you came to the restaurant, you were polite, respectful. You stopped with the expensive tips, stopped with the gifts. I thought maybe you were actually listening." "I was listening. I am. I just wanted to help. By staging a fake crime so you could play hero?" Emma's voice rose slightly. "Do you have any idea how insulting that is? You think I need saving? You think I'm some damsel who'll fall into your arms if you rescue me?" The actor had crawled away and was stumbling toward a nearby convenience store, probably to wash out his eyes. A few pedestrians had stopped to watch the confrontation, phones out. "I grew up in neighborhoods where my mother walked me to school because real danger existed on every corner," Emma continued, her voice shaking now, not with fear, but with anger. "I learned to defend myself because I had to, not because it was a hobby. I've dealt with actual threats, actual violence. And you thought you could just manufacture a scenario where I need you. That's not what I—" "Yes, it is." Emma stepped closer, and despite her smaller stature, Jae-won felt like he was the one being towered over. "You've been trying to make me need you since the moment we met. the tips, the gifts, the offers to pay my tuition. And when all of that failed, you decided to create a crisis you could solve. Because you can't handle the fact that I don't need anything from you. You're right, Jae-won said, the words coming out before he could stop them. You're absolutely right. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to approach someone who doesn't want anything from me. Emma's expression softened slightly, but the disappointment remained. Then maybe you should stop trying. Because this, she gestured between them. Whatever you think this is, it's not happening. Not like this. She turned and walked toward the bus stop, her shoulders stiff with tension. Jae-won watched her go, making no move to follow. For the first time, he understood that he wasn't just failing to win her over. He was actively pushing her away. Every attempt to demonstrate his worth only proved how little he understood about what she actually valued. The bus arrived, and Emma boarded without looking back. Jae-won stood on the sidewalk, watching the taillights disappear into Seoul's evening traffic, feeling more lost than he'd ever felt in his life. Back at his penthouse, Jae-won poured himself a whiskey and stared at the city lights. His phone buzzed with messages from his lieutenants about territory disputes and shipment schedules, but he ignored them all. Minho entered the apartment using his key, took one look at Jae-won's face, and poured himself a drink too. That bad? She saw through it immediately. Called me out in the middle of the street. Minho winced. What did she say? That I've been trying to make her need me because I can't handle that she doesn't want anything from me. Jae-won drained his glass. She's right. About all of it. They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Minho spoke. Boss, can I say something that might get me fired? Go ahead. Maybe the problem is that you're still thinking like a crime boss. Like this is a negotiation or a territory dispute. You're trying to find her weakness, exploit it, make her dependent. That's how you handle business rivals, not how you court a woman. Jae-won looked at his oldest friend. Then how do I court a woman? I've never had to try before. Maybe that's exactly your problem. Every woman you've been with wanted your money or your power. Emma doesn't want either. So all your usual moves not only don't work, they actively repel her. You need to figure out what you actually have to offer her as just a man, not as Jae-won Beck, crime boss. And what if the answer is nothing? Minho shrugged. Then you let her go. But I don't think that's the answer. I think you're just terrified to try being vulnerable with someone for the first time in your life. After Minho left, Jae-won sat alone with those words. Vulnerable. When was the last time he'd been vulnerable? When he was a child, before his father's world had hardened him into something cold and calculating. He'd built walls so high that no one could hurt him, but those same walls prevented anyone from truly knowing him. Emma had seen through those walls from the beginning. She'd looked at him that first night and seen just a man, not a legend or a monster. And instead of appreciating that gift, he'd spent weeks trying to impress her with the very things she clearly didn't care about. 3 weeks passed. Jae-won didn't return to the restaurant. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done, staying away, but Emma had asked him to stop, and for once he was going to actually listen. Every evening around 9 o'clock, when he knew her shift would be ending, he fought the urge to drive to Moonlight Pavilion just to catch a glimpse of her. Instead, he threw himself into business, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. Decisions that once came easily now felt hollow. His father noticed the change. You've been distracted, the older Beck said during a meeting about expanding their operations into Busan. This isn't like you. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're thinking about that girl. The American. Jae-won didn't bother denying it. Yes. His father studied him for a long moment. And what has thinking about her accomplished? Has she fallen at your feet? Begged for your attention? No. Then forget her. There are plenty of women who would be honored. I don't want plenty of women. Jae-won interrupted, his voice sharp. I want her. Why? What makes her so special? Jae-won thought about that question. Really thought about it. Because when she looks at me, she sees who I could be, not who I am. Everyone else looks at me with fear or greed. She looked at me with disappointment because she expected better from me. Do you know how rare that is? To have someone believe you could be better? His father was quiet for a moment. And has this revelation changed anything? Are you planning to walk away from the family business? Become the man she wants you to be? I don't know, Jae-won admitted. I don't know if I can. Then you've answered your own question about why she keeps rejecting you. She's smart enough to see that you're not willing to change, just willing to play pretend for a while to get what you want. The words stung because they were true. Jae-won had been so focused on making Emma see his worth that he'd never considered actually becoming worthy of her. Real change, not just gestures and performances. That night, Jae-won made a decision. He called his cousin, Tae-sung, who'd always been interested in taking a larger role in the family business. How would you feel about taking over some of my responsibilities? Jae-won asked. What? What? Because I'm thinking about making some changes in my life. And I need to know if the family can survive without me at the center of everything. There was a long pause. Jae-won, what's going on? I'm trying to figure out who I am without all of this. The power, the fear, the control. And I can't do that while I'm still drowning in family business. This is about that girl, isn't it? It's about me, Jae-won corrected. She just made me realize I don't like who I've become. Meanwhile, Emma was dealing with her own crisis. She arrived at the International Student Office for a routine check-in and was informed that there were irregularities with her visa application. A formal complaint had been filed claiming she was working more hours than her student visa permitted and that she'd accepted substantial gifts from a Korean national, which could be considered a violation of her visa terms. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her feet. That's not true. I have documentation for all my work hours, and I haven't accepted any gifts from anyone. The advisor, Mr. Song, looked uncomfortable. I understand, but we're required to investigate all formal complaints. Until this is resolved, you're at risk of having your visa revoked. Who filed the complaint? I'm not at liberty to say, but Emma had a pretty good idea. Minisio, a classmate who'd been growing increasingly hostile as Emma continued to top every class ranking. Minisio came from a wealthy family and had always looked down on the international students who had to work their way through school. Emma had overheard her complaining to friends about how it was unfair that scholarship students like Emma made everyone else look bad. Emma left the office in a daze. Deportation. After everything she'd sacrificed, every late night, every missed event, every moment of exhaustion, it could all be taken away because of lies. She couldn't afford a good lawyer. The legal aid office at school had a 6-month waiting list. Her mother couldn't help. The family was barely staying afloat as it was. For the first time since arriving in Seoul, Emma felt truly helpless. That evening at the restaurant, Mrs. Park noticed Emma's distraction immediately. Are you all right, dear? You seem upset. Emma forced a smile. Just some school stress. I'll be fine. But she wasn't fine. As she served tables that night, her mind raced through possibilities. Maybe she could find a pro bono lawyer. Maybe she could represent herself. Maybe she could gather enough evidence to disprove the allegations before the investigation concluded. She didn't notice the familiar figure that entered the restaurant and took a seat in her section. Not until she turned around and found herself face to face with Jae-won for the first time in 3 weeks. Emma froze, her notepad pressed against her chest. Jae-won looked different somehow. Tired, perhaps. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before, and he'd lost some weight. He wore simple clothes, a plain black sweater and jeans, and he was alone. No bodyguards lurking nearby, no expensive watch glinting on his wrist. Hi, he said quietly. Emma swallowed hard, trying to push down the confusing mix of emotions rising in her chest. Relief at seeing him, anger at how they'd left things, and underneath it all, that persistent attraction she'd been trying to ignore for weeks. Good evening, sir. What can I get for you tonight? Jae-won's expression flickered with something like pain at her formal tone. Just tea, please. Green tea. Emma wrote it down and turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Emma, wait. Please. She turned back, keeping her expression neutral even though her heart was racing. Yes. I need to tell you something. I know you asked me to stay away, and I have. But this is important. He took a breath. I know about your visa situation. Emma felt ice flood her veins. How do you? I have connections everywhere in this city. When something happens to someone I care about, I find out. He held up a hand before she could protest. I didn't investigate you. The information came to me through normal business channels. Immigration officials are part of my network. Of course they are, Emma said bitterly. She should have known. His reach extended everywhere. I can fix this for you, Jae-won continued. One phone call, and the investigation disappears. The complaint gets withdrawn. You're safe. Emma felt tears of frustration burning behind her eyes. Here it was again. The offer of salvation. The easy way out. And she wanted it so badly it physically hurt. She was exhausted from working and stressing and fighting. The idea of just letting him make it all go away was so tempting. No, she heard herself say. Jae-won blinked. Emma, you could be deported. Your entire future is at risk. I know what's at risk. And I'll handle it myself. How? You can't afford a good lawyer. The legal aid office has a months-long wait. The investigation could conclude before you even get representation. Then I'll represent myself. I'll gather evidence, character witnesses, documentation. I'll fight it the right way. J1 stood up, his voice rising slightly. The right way? Emma, this isn't about pride. This is about your life, your education, your dreams. Let me help you. Why? Emma demanded, her own voice getting louder. Several nearby tables turned to look. Why do you want to help me so badly? Is it guilt? Obsession? Because you can't handle being told no? Because I care about you. The words burst out of him, echoing through the restaurant. Because the thought of you being forced to leave Korea, of never seeing you again, is unbearable. Because He stopped himself, but Emma could see the rest of the sentence in his eyes. Because I love you. She felt her resolve wavering and hated herself for it. If you really cared about me, you'd respect my choices. You'd let me fight my own battles. Even if you lose. Especially if I lose. Don't you understand? My father took shortcuts. He made deals with dangerous people because it was easier than working hard. And it destroyed our family. I swore I would never take the easy way, never compromise my values for convenience. If I let you fix this for me, I become exactly what I've been running from my whole life. J1 stared at her, and she saw understanding dawn in his eyes. Finally, he was getting it. What if I already fixed it? He asked quietly. Emma's blood ran cold. What did you say? 2 days ago, when I found out about the investigation, I made calls. I pressured Min Seo's family. Her father owes me favors from a business deal last year. The complaint was withdrawn yesterday. The investigation is closed. The restaurant seemed to tilt around Emma. You already. I couldn't just stand by and watch you suffer when I could help. I'm sorry, Emma. I couldn't do it. Emma felt something crack inside her chest. All her resolve, all her determination to handle things herself, and he'd already taken that choice away from her. She'd never know now if she could have won on her own merit. He'd stolen that from her. Get out, she whispered. Emma, get out. Her voice broke on the words. Get out of this restaurant. Get out of my life. I never want to see you again. Mrs. Park appeared at her elbow. Emma, perhaps you should take a break. I'm fine, Emma said, even though tears were streaming down her face now. I'm perfectly fine. Sir, if you're not ordering food, I need you to leave. J1 looked like she'd struck him. He opened his mouth, closed it, then nodded slowly. I'm sorry, he said one more time. Then he turned and walked out of the restaurant. Emma stood there, shaking, as the other diners slowly returned to their conversations. Mrs. Park gently guided her to the back office. Sit down, dear. I'll have someone cover your tables. Emma collapsed into a chair, her emotions overwhelming her. She was angry, furious, at J1 for once again making decisions about her life without her consent. But underneath the anger was something else. Grief. Because part of her had wanted him to be different. Part of her had hoped that maybe, just maybe, he could learn to love her without trying to control her. But he couldn't. He'd proven that tonight. When faced with the choice between respecting her wishes and using his power to save her, he'd chosen power. He'd always choose power. He loves you, you know, Mrs. Park said quietly. Emma looked up, surprised. What? I've worked for the Beck family for 20 years. I've seen J1 with dozens of women. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. That man is in love with you. Love isn't enough, Emma said, wiping her eyes. Not if he can't respect me. Not if he sees me as something to be protected and controlled rather than as an equal. Mrs. Park nodded slowly. You're probably right. But maybe he's learning. 3 weeks ago, he would have told you what he did and expected gratitude. Tonight, he looked genuinely sorry. That's growth, even if it's not enough growth yet. Emma wanted to argue, but she was too tired, too emotionally drained. She just wanted to go home, crawl into bed, and forget this entire night had happened. But when she finally made it back to her small apartment, she found she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over. The look on J1's face when she told him to leave. The way his voice had cracked when he'd said he cared about her. Her phone buzzed. Against her better judgment, she looked at it. A message from an unknown number. I know you told me to stay out of your life. I'll respect that this time. But I need you to know something. Attached is documentation of everything I did regarding your visa case. Every call I made, every person I pressured, every favor I called in. If you want to reopen the investigation and fight it on your own merits, you can use this to invalidate everything I did. The choice is yours. It always should have been. I'm sorry for taking it away from you. JB. Emma opened the attachment with shaking hands. It was all there. Phone records, emails, documented conversations. Everything she would need to prove that the case had been resolved through improper influence rather than legitimate investigation. He was giving her the power to undo everything he'd done, even if it meant she might be deported, even if it meant losing her forever. Emma stared at the documents for a long time. Then she looked at the formal notice from the immigration office that had arrived that afternoon. Investigation concluded. No irregularities found. Visa status confirmed. She could reopen everything. Fight it the way she'd wanted to. Prove she could win on her own. Or she could accept what had happened and move forward. For the first time, Jaewon had given her a real choice. Not manipulation disguised as help, but actual agency over her own life. The documents proved he understood, finally, what he'd taken from her. And more than that, they proved he was willing to risk everything to give it back. Emma closed the attachment and set her phone aside. She didn't delete the file, but she didn't forward it to the immigration office either. Instead, she let herself think about what Mrs. Park had said. Maybe he's learning. The question was learning enough? And even if he could change, could she trust that change to be real and lasting? Emma didn't have answers. But for the first time since meeting Jaewon Beck, she felt like maybe, just maybe, there could be a future where those answers were possible. 3 more weeks passed. Emma threw herself into her studies with renewed intensity. Finals were approaching, and she needed to maintain her perfect GPA to graduate with honors. The visa scare had shaken her, but it had also reinforced her determination to succeed on her own terms. She didn't hear from Jaewon. No messages, no visits to the restaurant, no elaborate gestures. True silence. And she found herself missing him in ways that surprised her. She'd catch herself looking toward the door during her shifts, hoping to see him walk in. She'd remember small things, the way he listened when she talked about her dreams, the genuine smile that rarely crossed his face but transformed it completely when it did. Yuki noticed Emma's distraction during their study sessions. You're thinking about him again. Emma didn't bother denying it. I shouldn't be. He interfered with my life, made decisions without my consent. But he also gave you the evidence to undo it all. And he stayed away like you asked. Doesn't that count for something? Maybe. I don't know. Emma closed her textbook with a sigh. What if he only sent that documentation to manipulate me into forgiving him? What if it's just another strategy? Then he's playing a really long game for someone who could have any woman he wants with a snap of his fingers. Yuki leaned back in her chair. Look, I'm not saying you should run back to him. But maybe you're not being entirely honest with yourself about why you're still so angry. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you're angry because he helped you, and part of you is relieved he did. Maybe you're angry at yourself for being glad you didn't have to fight that battle alone. Emma opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Was that true? Had she been projecting her own conflicted feelings onto Jaewon? Before she could explore that thought further, her phone rang. Her mother's number flashed on the screen. Hey, Mom. Emma. Baby, I have news. Her mother's voice was trembling with emotion. Your brother got the scholarship. Full ride to Georgia Tech. He's going to college. Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. Mom, that's incredible. And your sister got accepted into that art program she wanted. The one with the stipend. Her mother was crying now. Baby, they're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And it's because of you. Because you've been sending money home. Because you've been working so hard to show them what's possible. Mom, stop. You did this. You kept the family together. You worked yourself to the bone. We both did. We're a team, Emma. Always have been. Her mother paused. How are you doing? Really? Emma thought about lying, about saying everything was fine. But her mother had always been able to see through her. I'm confused, Mom. There's this guy. The rich one you told me about last month? The one who keeps trying to give you things. Yeah, he helped me with something I didn't ask for help with. Fixed a problem I wanted to solve myself. And I'm so angry at him for taking that choice away from me. But I'm also, Emma's voice broke slightly. I'm also relieved. And I hate that I'm relieved. Does that make sense? Her mother was quiet for a moment. Baby, you know why your father's mistakes hurt us so badly. Because he chose the easy way instead of working hard. No, because he didn't trust us enough to face the hard times together. He made decisions alone, trying to protect us, and those decisions destroyed us. Her mother's voice was gentle but firm. But there's a difference between someone who helps because they think you're weak, and someone who helps because they can't bear to watch you struggle when they have the power to ease your burden. How do I know which one he is? You ask yourself, did he help me because he thinks I can't do it myself? Or did he help me because watching me struggle was breaking his heart? Emma thought about the look on Jaewon's face when he'd said he couldn't just stand by. The pain in his eyes when she told him to leave. The fact that he'd given her the power to undo everything he'd done. I think it was the second one. But that doesn't make it right, does it? No, baby. But it makes it human. And if he's willing to learn from his mistakes, if he's willing to change, well, that's worth something. After they hung up, Emma sat with her mother's words. She'd been so focused on maintaining her independence, on proving she didn't need anyone, that she'd forgotten there was a difference between needing someone and choosing to let someone in. The next evening, Emma's shift at the restaurant was quiet. It was a Tuesday, traditionally their slowest night. She was wiping down tables near closing time when Mrs. Park approached her. Emma, there's someone here to see you. Emma's heart jumped. If it's J1, I don't. It's not. It's his father. Emma felt ice water flood her veins. She followed Mrs. Park to the VIP room where an older man sat alone. He had J1's eyes, but harder, colder. This was a man who had built an empire on fear and violence. Sit down, Miss Davis. Emma remained standing. I'm working. Whatever you have to say. My son has been distracted for months because of you. His focus is split, his judgment questionable. Yesterday, he informed me he's planning to step back from family operations. Emma's breath caught. What? He wants to transition responsibilities to his cousin. Claims he needs to figure out who he is without the family business. The older Beck's tone made it clear what he thought of that idea. This is your influence. I never asked him to do that. I told him to stay away from me. And yet, here we are. My son, my heir, ready to walk away from everything because a girl who works 3 jobs to pay her tuition makes him feel like a normal person. He leaned forward. I could make your life very difficult, Miss Davis. One word from me, and you'd be on a plane back to America by morning. Emma felt fear spike through her, but she kept her voice steady. Then do it. I've been threatened before. I've survived worse than you can imagine. But I won't be bullied into doing whatever it is you think you want from me. I want you to understand what you're taking from him. He was born for this life, groomed for it, and you're making him doubt everything he is. No, Emma said firmly. I'm making him question whether who he is and who he was born to be are the same thing. If that terrifies you, that's not my problem. The older man studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. A cold, calculating expression. I can see why he's fascinated by you. You have steel in your spine. Most people can't even meet my eyes. Are we done here? Almost. Let me make one thing clear. I won't threaten you or interfere with your life. Despite what you might think, I love my son. And I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. He stood. But if you're going to turn his world upside down, you'd better be sure you're worth it. Because if you break his heart and leave him destroyed, unable to return to the family or move forward with you, well, that's a waste of a good man. Don't start something you're not prepared to finish. He left, and Emma stood alone in the VIP room, her hands shaking. J1 was planning to leave the family business. For himself, he'd said through his father. But also, she realized, to have a chance at being the kind of man she could respect. The question was, did she want him to? Did she have the right to let him make that sacrifice? Emma thought about it for the rest of her shift, through her commute home, through her attempts to study. Finally, at midnight, she made a decision. She texted the number J1 had used to send her the documentation. We need to talk. But not at the restaurant. Somewhere neutral. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the cafe across from SNU's main library. The response came within seconds. I'll be there. Emma stared at her phone, her heart racing. She didn't know what she was going to say to him. Didn't know if she was ready to forgive him or if she even should. But she knew she couldn't keep avoiding this conversation. The next afternoon, Emma arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, nerves making her stomach twist. She ordered a coffee she didn't drink and sat at a corner table, watching the door. J1 arrived exactly at 2 o'clock. He looked different, thinner, tired, but somehow lighter too. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, no designer labels visible. When he spotted her, relief flooded his face, followed immediately by uncertainty. He approached slowly, as if afraid she might bolt. Hi. Hi. Emma gestured to the empty chair. Sit down. He sat, keeping a careful distance between them. Up close, she could see the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. He looked like a man who hadn't been sleeping well. Thank you for agreeing to meet me, J1 said quietly. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. Emma took a breath. Your father came to see me last night. J1's expression darkened. What? Emma, I'm so sorry. If he threatened you. He didn't. Well, he implied he could make my life difficult, but he didn't actually threaten me. She paused. He told me you're planning to step back from the family business. Jae-won looked down at his hands. Yes. Why? Because I don't like who I am in that world. Because every decision I make there involves violence or intimidation or manipulation. Because, he looked up, meeting her eyes. Because I want to be someone you could respect. Someone who doesn't need fear and money to be valued. Emma felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. Jae-won, you can't rebuild your entire life for me. That's too much pressure. What if it doesn't work out between us? What if? I'm not doing it for you. He interrupted gently. I'm doing it for me. You just made me realize I had a choice. For the first time in my life, I'm asking myself what I actually want, not what my family expects or what my position demands. He leaned forward slightly. Emma, these past weeks without you have been the longest of my life. But they've also been clarifying. I've had time to think about who I want to be. And that person, he's not the head of a crime family. He's someone who earns respect through his actions, not his threats. Someone who builds things instead of destroying them. That's a beautiful dream, Emma said softly. But becoming that person isn't easy. It's not just walking away from your family. It's rebuilding yourself from scratch. I know, and I'm terrified. But I'm more terrified of staying who I am and losing any chance of becoming someone worthy of you. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. You keep saying worthy of me like I'm some prize to be won. I'm just a person, Jae-won. A flawed, exhausted person who works too hard and trusts too little and has her own issues to work through. You're the person who looked at me and saw potential instead of power. Who expected better from me when no one else did. Who stood up to me, challenged me, refused to let me buy or intimidate my way into your life. Jae-won's voice was raw with emotion. Do you know how rare that is? How precious. Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek. I've been so angry at you. For weeks, I've been furious about the visa situation, about you taking away my choice. But my roommate said something that made me think. She asked if maybe I was angry at myself for being relieved that you helped. For being glad I didn't have to fight that battle alone. Jae-won listened, not interrupting, his full attention on her. And she was right, Emma continued. Part of me wanted to handle it myself, to prove I could. But another part of me was so tired, Jae-won. So exhausted from always having to be strong, always having to fight every battle alone. And when you fixed it, there was this moment of relief before the anger set in. Relief that someone cared enough to help, even when I didn't ask for it. I should have asked first, Jae-won said quietly. I should have told you what I knew and let you decide how to handle it. But the thought of you being deported, of losing you before I ever really had a chance, I panicked. I reverted to what I know, using power to solve problems. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. Emma wiped her eyes. The fact that you sent me that documentation, that you gave me the power to undo everything you did, that meant something. That showed me you were actually listening, actually learning. I'm trying to learn. It's harder than I thought it would be. 30 years of being taught that power solves everything. That's not easy to unlearn. Jae-won's hands were clasped tightly on the table. But I want to try. With or without you in my life. I want to be better than I am. Emma took a shaky breath. I'm scared, Jae-won. I'm scared of letting myself care about you, and then watching you slip back into old patterns. I'm scared that you'll resent me someday for making you leave your family. I'm scared that I'm not strong enough to be with someone who's trying to change such fundamental parts of themselves. You don't have to be strong enough for both of us, Jae-won said. That's the whole point. I don't want you to carry me or fix me. I want us to figure this out together. As equals. I don't know if I know how to do that. I've been independent for so long, taking care of myself, not relying on anyone. I know, and I'm not asking you to change that. I'm just asking you to consider that maybe letting someone help sometimes doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. He paused. Your mother called you last night, didn't she? I saw you smiling at your phone during your shift. Emma blinked, surprised. You were at the restaurant? I was across the street. I know, it's borderline stalking. But I couldn't help myself. I just wanted to see you, even from a distance. He looked almost embarrassed. What made you smile? My brother got a full scholarship to college. And my sister got into her dream art program. Jae-won's face lit up with genuine happiness. Emma, that's wonderful. You must be so proud. I am. My mom said it's because I've been showing them what's possible, working so hard out here. But really, it's because they're brilliant and talented and they worked for it. You all worked for it. Your whole family. Jae-won smiled softly. That's what real strength looks like. Not the kind that comes from intimidation or control, but the kind that comes from supporting each other, believing in each other. Emma felt something shift in her chest. This man, This powerful, dangerous man looked at her family's struggles and saw strength rather than weakness. Saw value in the very things his world would dismiss. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said. "Anything. What does stepping back from the family business actually look like? What's your plan?" Jae-won leaned back in his chair. "My cousin Tae-sung has been training under me for years. He's capable, smart, and he actually wants this life. I've been transitioning responsibilities to him over the past 3 weeks. My father is furious, but he can't stop me. I'm 28, not a child. And what will you do instead?" "Honestly, I don't know yet. I've been thinking about legitimate business. I have a degree in economics from Seoul National University, believe it or not. I just never used it because I was always destined for the family business." He ran a hand through his hair. "Maybe consulting, maybe starting something new. I have capital, I have business sense. I just need to figure out how to apply it to something that doesn't involve breaking the law." Emma couldn't help but smile slightly. "That's terrifying, isn't it? Not having a clear path forward." "Terrifying," Jae-won agreed. "But also, for the first time in my life, exciting. I get to choose. I get to figure out who Jae-won Beck is when he's not defined by his family legacy." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the cafe bustling around them with students and professors and ordinary people living ordinary lives. "I can't promise you anything," Emma said finally. "I can't promise I'm ready for a relationship or that I'll ever fully trust you or that this will work out. I'm graduating in 3 months, and I don't even know if I'm staying in Korea. I'm not asking for promises. I'm just asking for a chance to start over as equals. No grand gestures, no expensive gifts, no using my connections to solve your problems. Just 2 people getting to know each other." Emma looked at him, really looked at him. At the hope in his eyes, the vulnerability in his expression, the way his hands trembled slightly on the table. This wasn't the cold crime boss she'd first met. This was a man taking the biggest risk of his life. "Coffee," Emma said. "We can start with coffee. Like this. Conversations in neutral places. No expectations, no pressure." Jae-won's face transformed with a smile so genuine and bright that Emma's breath caught. "I can do coffee. I'm excellent at coffee. You've probably never actually made coffee in your life." "True, but I'm willing to learn." His eyes sparkled with something like mischief. "Will you teach me?" Emma laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. "You want me to teach you how to make coffee? I want you to teach me how to be normal. How to do regular things that regular people do. I've spent my whole life being served, being catered to. I don't actually know how to cook, how to clean, how to do laundry." "Oh my God, you're a disaster," Emma said, but she was still laughing. "A disaster who's willing to learn," Jae-won corrected. "If you're willing to be patient with me." Emma felt the last of her walls crumbling. This was dangerous. This was scary. But it was also, possibly, exactly what both of them needed. "Okay," she said softly. "We can try this. Slowly, carefully, with clear boundaries and honest communication." Slowly, Jae-won agreed. "Carefully, with boundaries and communication. And if you slip back into old patterns, if you try to control me or solve my problems without asking, I'm gone. No second chances. Understood. And if I do something that makes you uncomfortable, you have to tell me. I can't learn if you don't communicate." Emma nodded. "Deal." They talked for another hour, about small things, ordinary things. Emma's classes, her thesis project on sustainable business practices in developing economies. Jae-won's secret love of old jazz music, the same genre Emma loved. His embarrassing lack of cooking skills. Her terrible sense of direction and soul. When they finally left the cafe, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. They walked slowly toward the bus stop, not quite touching but close enough that Emma could feel the warmth of his presence. "Can I see you again?" Jae-won asked. "Maybe this weekend? I could attempt to make you dinner. Fair warning, it will probably be terrible." Emma smiled. "That sounds perfect, actually. But let me bring ingredients and supervise. I don't trust you not to burn down your kitchen." "Smart woman." He paused at the bus stop. "Emma, thank you for giving me this chance. I won't waste it." "You'd better not," she said, trying to sound stern but failing because she was smiling too much. The bus arrived, and Emma boarded, turning to wave at Jae-won through the window. He stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching the bus pull away with that same soft smile on his face. Over the next 3 months, they built something real. Jae-won came to Emma's tiny apartment and learned to make kimchi jjigae, burning it twice before getting it right. Emma visited his penthouse and taught him how to do laundry, laughing when he accidentally turned all his white shirts pink. They studied together in coffee shops, Jae-won helping her practice presentation skills while she helped him develop a business plan for a legitimate consulting firm. There were stumbles, moments when Jae-won's instinct to solve problems with money or power kicked in, and Emma had to firmly remind him of their boundaries. Times when Emma's fierce independence made her push him away when she actually needed support. But they talked through it. They learned from each other. Jae-won officially stepped away from the family business 2 months into their relationship. His father was disappointed but ultimately accepting, especially when Taesung proved more than capable of leading. The transition was rocky, but Jae-won found that the weight lifting from his shoulders was worth the difficulty. Emma graduated with highest honors, her thesis winning a department award. Jae-won sat in the audience, cheering louder than anyone when her name was called. Her mother and siblings flew in for the ceremony, and Emma introduced them to Jae-won with a mixture of nervousness and pride. Her mother pulled Emma aside afterward. "He looks at you like you hung the moon, Mom. And you look at him the same way, baby. I'm happy for you. Really happy." She squeezed Emma's hand. "Just promise me you'll keep being yourself. Don't lose who you are trying to fit into his world." "I won't. He doesn't want me to fit into his world. He's building a new world. We both are." After graduation, Emma received 2 job offers. One from a prestigious consulting firm in New York, another from a growing startup in Seoul focusing on sustainable business practices. The choice should have been obvious. Go home, be near family, take the safe option. But when she looked at what she'd built in Seoul, her friendships, her life, her relationship with Jae-won, the decision was surprisingly clear. She accepted the Seoul position. 6 months after that coffee shop conversation, Emma and Jae-won stood on a bridge overlooking the Han River, the city lights reflecting off the water like scattered stars. "I got the first client for my consulting firm today," Jae-won said. "A small manufacturing company that wants to expand into sustainable practices. It's not glamorous, and the profit margin is tiny, but you earned it legitimately," Emma finished. "That's incredible, Jae-won. I couldn't have done it without you. You helped me develop the proposal, coached me through the presentation. I helped, but you did the work. That's important. You're building something real, something you can be proud of." Jae-won pulled her close, and Emma leaned into his warmth. "Do you ever regret it? Taking a chance on me?" Emma thought about the question seriously. "Sometimes it's scary. Sometimes I worry about what could go wrong. But mostly I'm grateful. You've challenged me to be less guarded, to let people help me. And I like to think I've helped you see that real strength comes from integrity, not intimidation. You have. You've changed everything for me." He kissed the top of her head. "I love you, Emma Davis. I should have said it months ago, but I was scared. I'm saying it now. I love you." Emma's heart swelled. She'd known it, felt it, but hearing the words still made her breath catch. "I love you too, even though you still can't make rice without burning it." Jae-won laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "I'm working on it." They stood together as the city moved around them. 2 people who'd found each other across impossible divides and chosen to build something new together. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and honest and theirs. This story teaches us that love isn't about grand gestures or displays of power. It's about respect, communication, and the willingness to change and grow. Emma showed us the importance of maintaining our independence and values, even when it's tempting to take the easy path. Jae-won demonstrated that it's never too late to choose who you want to be, that our past doesn't have to define our future. Together, they prove that the strongest relationships are built on equality, mutual respect, and the courage to be vulnerable with each other. Real love doesn't seek to control or possess. It empowers, supports, and celebrates the other person's strength. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us create more stories like this one. We love hearing from you, so don't be shy. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Until next time, remember that the best love stories are the ones where both people choose to become better versions of themselves together.